There is no denying it. Kansas State needs a wake-up call. And what that means is a statement win against the Army Black Knights.
You are Locked On Kansas State, your daily podcast on the Kansas State Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Christian Rao, and thank you so much for making Locked On Kansas State your first listen every single day. Welcome back to my everydayers. We are a day before game time. Kansas State taking on Army in a must-win situation for Kansas State. I am already in that boat that if this game goes down the way that it happened on Saturday against North Dakota, where you only win by a field goal, and if it goes the completely opposite direction, where you lose this game against a G5 opponent in Army, a team that lost to an FCS opponent last week, this season is ready to go down the drain. And I understand that there are ways to get to Arlington. This is not a Big 12 game. But if you do not start off with a statement win here, this is a true gut check time, a wake-up call, as what we heard from defensive coordinator Joe Klieman in his press conference on Thursday. I absolutely agree with him. It's a wake-up call for this team, especially the defensive side. If it doesn't happen, then I think this season is ready to just, dare I say, punt it. It's time to move on and start talking about maybe some other things and how we can salvage this program. Look, I know I'm maybe starting this show off a little negative today, but that is exactly where my mind sits. This is a must-win situation for Kansas State. And of course, when you are playing a team like this that is considered an inferior opponent like North Dakota was or like Army was, not considered that Power 4 status, they are, of course, all must-wins. But it's different right now because of the way you started your season. Because you already have a loss on the docket in the Big 12 conference to Iowa State, you really can't afford a non-conference loss. You squeaked by North Dakota. You got to make sure you get the W against Army. And then next week on a short week, another reason too, you play Friday night in Arizona's involved and you play a day earlier. This is a game where not only do you have to have a wake up, you need to have a statement game. I'm going to give you my prediction in just a minute. I'm not going to make you wait very long on this show today. My prediction, it's going to happen in just a few minutes. But first, you have to find a way to get Avery Johnson out of this game. And what I mean by that is I want him not playing the second half. That means that you had so much of a statement that you can sit your starters, a thing that you should have been able to last week. I want to be able to come on this show next week and have a conversation to you about what we think about the backup quarterback behind Avery Johnson, whoever that might be. Because right now the depth chart that came out has a lot of oars next to it. And the coaches, coordinators are being kind of quiet with that, saying, we know what we have back there, but you don't. You're right. We don't. And we want to know. And hopefully we can find that out tomorrow against Army. I think Chris Klieman's done messing around. I think that he's done hearing what we all have to say about him potentially being on the hot seat because of what happened this last couple of weeks, about him potentially not being the right guy for the job, about his coordinators being wrong picks. I think he's done messing around. And I think this is the perfect moment for him to say, all right, we're moving forward. And that's why I think not only is this going to be a wake-up call for Kansas State, they are going to finish with a statement win. My score prediction is 41-7 for Kansas State taking the win here. I think they take care of business. I think the defense is fed up. I think you're going to see that eye discipline that Coach Klieman and Coach Klannerman was talking about, saying that they need to get that improved. I mean, this is the perfect opportunity to get that improved because you hardly have to focus on the pass. Army is the closest to what is a one-dimensional team with their triple option. So I think they take care of business. 41-7 is my score prediction, and I think it could get even higher in the scores. Maybe 51-14, maybe something along those lines. But I do think that we're going to put up some points against Army tomorrow. Holding Army to 7 points would be a huge win for this defense. It would be a huge win for this defense. It'll show that the defensive trenches have guts. It'll show the linebackers are doing their job. And it'll most likely show that secondary is not letting anything get to them to the third level. So Count me in if that is the score, the game that happens 41-7. That's exactly where my mind sits on here. I also want to see Avery Johnson rush the football 5 to 6 times in the first half. And again, I'm going to give my thoughts on him for only one half only, because I am hoping that we only see him for one half, 3 quarters at most. I want to see him rush the football 5 to 6 times in the first half, because I think that is something that is missing on this offense. We talked about it pretty deeply on yesterday's episode. I'd like to see him utilize the play action more. I think that comes into play with the rushing attempts. And I'd like him to limit his throws across the middle, especially when he's rolling out and there's some pressure there. There were a couple moments, especially last week. I pointed the pass reception to Tibbs where you could have made a terrible interception. There could have been a terrible turnover because you threw it over pressure across the middle. That's never usually a good formula for success. I say usually. It's normally not. I would like you to maybe look differently in your progressions instead of that, or even throw the ball away, or maybe just take a 1 or 2 yard gain on a rush. This is where that experienced second-year quarterback needs to come into play instead of trying to force a play across the middle if that happens. And it hasn't happened much for Avery. I mean, honestly, I think he has progressed. He has improved compared to last year. There's just more that we can see from him. And some of that's from the coaching, getting him to be in the right positions when it comes to running the football, when it comes to making the right plays and progressions. But some of it also, of course, comes from him and his football IQ. I think we are going to continue to see him improve. I'd like to see only one half of improvement from him on Saturday. 41-7. Do you agree with me? Let me know in the comment description below. I think that is a great score to win. I think that if that happens, we can come back here on the reaction show tomorrow, even though it'll be super late. We'll be here live, Locked On Kansas State, breaking down the game. So make sure you tune in. Make sure you hop on over to YouTube and check that out live right after the game. We'll put it back on. We'll put it on audio when we're done live, so you'll get that within the hour. However, if that game is done the way it is, 41-7, we're going to be able to come on here and talk about how this team is finally moving in the right direction. How we're actually excited about exhibit A, B, and C. Like, we're going to be able to actually have some points. We haven't had that yet this season. We've had small little bits like, okay, how Devon Rice has improved, how Donovan McIntosh has looked great, how Avery is not being utilized enough. It'd be really nice to come onto this show and talk about the things that we have been discussing all offseason long come to fruition and actually take place in a football game. I think that happens this Saturday, and 41-7 is my score prediction. Drop your score prediction in the comment description below. I want to hear your thoughts on that one for sure. I think that we have a great opportunity to win this football game, make a statement, get ready for a short week because we're going to Arizona on Friday, a Big 12 opponent that is our last non-conference game. Remember that one. And then we go to the gauntlet. You could consider after Army, it is the gauntlet. Even if you think Arizona is not a great team this year, they're still a Big 12 opponent. We played 10 Big 12 opponents this season. After Army, we played 9 in a row. So this is a great opportunity to take care of Army, make a statement win, have a short week to Arizona, and then we have a full week off. So there we go. That's my thought process on this. Hey, I don't know if you know this or not. I'm a big Kansas State fan, of course, but I love college football. Consider me a sicko when it comes at it. And I think that this slate this weekend is absolutely loaded. And a lot of it comes into play with Kansas State and their other rivals, KU and Iowa State, playing some rivalry games themselves. I sat down with 2 of our Locked On hosts, and we discussed those rivalries in full. And the cool part about it is the games are on at perfect times that we can make the Kansas State Army game a nightcap. So let's check that out for the rest of this episode right here on Locked On Kansas State. But first, this episode of Locked On Kansas State is brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend, and it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. And these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For Kansas State, I mentioned this yesterday. I'm still with it. Joe Jackson delivered in a big way. I mean, what he did, that fourth quarter touchdown win, scoring and catching that touchdown performance to get the win over North Dakota is exactly what you need from a running back who's filling the shoes of Dylan Edwards. I think him and Devon Rice did an excellent job, but they stepped up, no hesitation, no delay when it absolutely mattered. And this, if you've been watching week after week, Joe Jackson's performance isn't a fluke, especially after watching what you saw from him last season. His performances are there. It's just like, well, we can hopefully get more from him this year. He is on a streak. And just like Joe Jackson delivered for Kansas State, DoorDash delivers you Saturdays. With DoorDash streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, keep the streak alive, fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply, promo period through November 18th. This episode of Locked on Kansas State also brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. They follow what moves them every time they drive. And that's what makes Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety, style, performance to deliver a driving experience that feels alive in every detail. You can feel it the moment you get behind the wheel. The smooth handling, intuition, controls, and standard all-wheel drive in every crossover SUV. It's the small details that make the big plays. And just like there's more to every player, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Well, one plus side about Kansas State playing in the late slate, you get to check out some amazing games on Saturday. One of the ones is right in state with KU taking on Missouri in the Border War. Derek Johnson of Locked on Jayhawks joined me for this conversation, and it's going to be an exciting one. The Jayhawks taking on Missouri for the first time in a very long time, and this is a rivalry that easily matches the K-State KU rivalry, I think, and you might even be able to lean and say that this one takes the cake when it comes to a hatred level, Derek. This is a crazy amount of hatred between these two programs.
Yeah, I've kind of said before, like the KU K-State rivalry, to me, it's a sports rivalry. Like they hate each other on the field. And I've said before, like I actually think the KU K-State game is more important for KU this year because you've lost 16 straight. Like you need to end that streak. But if we are just talking rivalry, like at the end of the day, Kansas and Kansas State, they were both Kansans when we were talking about bleeding Kansas. And the history here of people coming over the border from Missouri and people coming over the border from Kansas into Missouri and literally burning houses down, literally raiding each other's houses, like murdering people in the streets. Like there are families who like their great grandfather or something might have been, fighting Missourians or William Quantrill or John Brown or something like that. So like, I don't think people nationally understand how much this rivalry is built on like real history during the Civil War, as opposed to just being about like, oh, we've played each other a lot in sports.
Yeah, take me back to the history of this actual rivalry for a minute. KU and Missouri in football. Who's got the best of it in the last like couple of years? I mean, really last couple chances because they haven't played in what, a decade? Is it?
Yeah, so haven't played since 2011. Missouri's won the last 3 coming into this one. And this will be the first meeting on a campus since 2006 because they were playing in Arrowhead. Now that's actually a dispute. If you ask Missouri people, they will tell you that they lead the all-time series 57-54. And then there's like a tie in there. Kansas will tell you, and this is what the NCAA recognizes, that the series is Missouri 56, Kansas 55. And this is perfect for a rivalry, right? That you have a dispute over what the record is. 1960, Kansas upsets number 1 Missouri 23-7. They win the game. I guess it helps keep Missouri from winning one of those national titles. And basically afterwards, the Big 8 ended up declaring one of KU's running backs who played in the game ineligible. So they ended up giving a forfeit win, which by NCAA standards, all they do is they just vacate the win from Kansas. Missouri went as far to say it's a forfeit, we get the win.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, obviously Kansas has looked good so far. I've been paying attention because we know we have the Sunflower Showdown coming on in a few weeks, and we'll see if you're able to beat the streak. But I know all eyes are on this game against Mizzou. They started off strong. Of course, they played just, I think, Central Arkansas. They won 61-6. You looked great against Fresno State. You looked great against Wagner. Jalen Daniels looks like the quarterback that we all thought he could be when he had that Heisman hype just a few years ago. What's your feeling and the vibe heading into this one?
I think it can be a close game. The thing that worries me the most is Missouri has a really talented defensive line. And Jalen Daniels took a decent amount of hits in the Fresno State game. Now, the offensive line was better against Wagner with another week of experience, but it was also a worse opponent. So it's tough to say how much better is the offensive line, because if they are like the Fresno State game, it might be a long day for Kansas. But if they can hold up at least a little bit, I like KU's chances to at least keep it close. And that's then where the next part of the story comes into play, because Missouri went 6-1 in one-score games last year. Kansas was 1-5. Now, for some people, for some teams, one-score winning is a skill. You know, when you look at like Iowa all the years under Kirk Ferentz, they're consistently good in one-score games because they do a lot of things that are helpful in one-score games. When you look at like the NFL, it's usually the best quarterbacks are the best in one-score games because it comes down to the wire. In college, though, outside of a few exceptions, and there are exceptions, it tends to ebb and flow more. Like a team will do well in one-score games one year, and it'll revert closer to the mean after another year. Is that an opportunity to revert to the mean in this game? Or is it just an opportunity where, hey, Missouri's good at it and Kansas is not? And that could be the difference, because it is a one touchdown spread, 6.5 points over on FanDuel, to where, you know, if it is going to be a close game, we might learn, is this year going to be different for Kansas in one-score games very early in the season?
Yeah, I like the +6.5 favorites. I was actually just messing with my parlay before we got on a conversation here, and I was kind of writing down my thoughts, and that +6.5 for Kansas really makes me want to put it in a parlay for sure over our friends at FanDuel. Hey, talking about last week with Auburn and Baylor, you know, Big 12 versus SEC, that didn't work out in the Big 12's favor, but there is a chance that it can happen this week with Kansas on a pretty high run, and of course, Missouri looks good. But regardless, this is a rivalry not a lot of people talk about. If Kansas can get this win, what is the narrative that you think is going across the nation or across college football when it's all said and done? Is it Kansas is an elite contender, or is it just something where they're going to try and overshadow it and say, yeah, they just beat an SEC opponent, let's try and move on as fast as we can?
I think it means more for the Big 12 than it does the SEC. I mean, Missouri is like, Phil Steele picked them, I forget if it was 10th or 12th. Pick Six Previews picked them 12th in the SEC, which, by the way, being picked like 12th in the SEC is still like picked like 30th nationally. ESPN, yeah. SP Plus, and FPI both have Missouri as a top 20 team. But point being, the SEC has so many bullets in the chamber to be able to fire that if Missouri loses to Kansas, they're just going to move on to the next team, right? That it'll be fine for them. It means more for the Big 12 because if Kansas wins this game, it is a data point that the Big 12 can point to say, you know, let's say Utah beats Kansas later in the season and Utah's in the playoff. That Utah can point to and say, okay, but look, one of our schools went on the road and beat an SEC team. Beyond that, though, I do think from my personal perspective, like if Kansas does win this game at Missouri, I'm going to be talking myself into the fact that Kansas is at the very least a contender for the Big 12 title, because, you know, I look at what Utah and TCU have looked like so far. Like, to me, those are some of the teams to beat. There's some other teams that I would throw up there too, but I look at it from a talent standpoint. Like, I'm sure there will be better teams that Kansas will play this year, but I don't know that there will be a more talented team. Missouri, over the last 5 years, their average recruiting rank is in the top 20 nationally. Their average transfer portal recruiting rank over the last 2 years is in the top 10. So from a talent perspective, this is about as tough as KU will play this year, and it's on the road in a hostile environment. So point being, if they win this game, I'll be talking myself into that they're at least in that discussion for Big 12 title.
2:30 Central Time. ESPN2 is when Kansas and Missouri take on each other. This is before the Kansas State game, so it's a perfect pregame for you Wildcat fans to check it out. Derek, I know you go with a reaction game or reaction show right after the game as well, so you can check that out if you want to just kind of get the full experience before you get ready to watch Kansas State versus Army. Let's throw it all together here. I want to kind of put you on the spot. Jalen Daniels obviously looks real good. 7 touchdowns, only 1 interception on a ratio in the first 2 games. Daniel Hinshaw doing a good job replacing Devin Neal so far. I really like what Henderson, and I think you saw me talking in the Big 12 squad group chat how I think Cam Pickett looks real damn good too. What's your overall prediction? If I had to throw you on the spot here, what are you saying for this game going to be?
My big worry is that defensive line in Missouri that has a couple Georgia transfers, that's got a couple players that are projected to go in the top 100 of the NFL draft. I would be picking Missouri in a close game. I feel horrible saying this, but I do think there would, like, if Kansas loses, say 27-24 or something like that, I know it's going to sting in the moment. It always sucks when you lose to your rival, But I think from a long-term perspective, there's a lot you could come away with that from a positive. So that's my biggest worry. But if you did tell me that the Kansas offensive line is at least going to hold up, I would be picking Kansas to spring this upset on the road. I do think Jalen Daniels is somebody who, is going to step up kind of in the moment this go around. I do really like the way Kansas has looked so far this season. And I do think the KU defense is flying under the radar with their start to the year. So it would not shock me at all if Kansas wins this game. And I really do want to pick them. I'm just scared of that SEC Missouri defensive line. So I guess I'm a coward.
Nah, that's all right. Well, at least you're taking you're holding the cover there, 6.5 points, because that's where I want to go as well. This is your last true test before Big 12 play. You open up next game against West Virginia, and it's going to be a wild season. We're already seeing that in the first couple weeks of the college football season. Thanks, Derek. I appreciate you joining me on this segment. I hope you guys have a good game. That's going to be an exciting week, exciting Saturday. This isn't the only rivalry that you should be paying attention to, Kansas State fans, though, because our other rival, Farmageddon, Iowa State, they have another big one as well. We're going to talk about that next right here on Locked On Kansas State. This episode of Locked On Kansas State is brought to you by Upside. If you're still paying full price for gas, stop. Don't do that, because listen up, you can stop leaving money behind and get real cash back every time you fill up with this free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app, Apple Store, Google Play right now, and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited promo code FOOTBALL and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You could make up to $300 per year just by buying gas that you already need. So at first I thought it was too good to be true. I typed in that promo code and boom, there it was. So don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app and use my limited time promo code FOOTBALL for a limited time 25-cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code FOOTBALL. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and condition. This episode of Locked On Kansas State is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here now with Thursday Night Football just happening. What a crazy way to start off that one. Don't worry, I'm not going to spit on you folks, but FanDuel is making sure that you get ready for a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if that bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I mean, this makes every game more exciting. The slate on Sunday is exciting as well. I really am looking forward to that Patriots-Raiders matchup in the early slate. Vrabel versus Carroll, that looks good. Seahawks-Niners, Brock Purdy against the Cyhawks there as well. I'm excited to see what Sam Darnold can do. And then, of course, on Sunday night, the Ravens and Bills, we could be seeing the AFC Championship matchup in Week 1. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Big noon Saturday is going to be a big one. Iowa taking on Iowa State. Nick Maravich joining me for a Farmageddon Friday segment. Although Kansas State's not in the mix in this one, it's a rivalry game. It's important for Kansas State because you fell to them in week 0. And of course, we get a chance to watch it because we don't play in the later slate. There's huge rivalry games this week. We got KU and Missouri, and of course, the Cyhawk game. Nick, I know all eyes are glued on this one. How's your vibes feeling about Iowa State and Iowa in Ames?
This is one that I admittedly look forward to every single year. I think everybody in the state of Iowa does. A lot riding on this game, especially this season. And I think my kind of initial vibes going into this one is a sense of uneasiness, which I know doesn't exactly sound positive, but it actually is. The reason I'm uneasy is because Iowa State, I feel almost too good about going into this game. Generally, going into this one, Iowa is the favorite, maybe a heavy favorite, but not quite showing in the books. Maybe it is really tight, but generally it's leaning Iowa. I think this year, if Iowa State loses, that's the upset. It's no longer Iowa State has to pull off the upset, even if it's at home. No. I think Iowa is the underdog truly in this one.
Yeah, I mean, FanDuel has Iowa State as a 3.5-point favorite last time I checked. I was looking at building my parlay right before we started recording, and I'm putting it in there. I'm putting Iowa State as a -3.5. I'm willing to do that. I think they can take care of it. I think they win against Iowa more than they beat Kansas State. I think they got to make a big point here, a big statement. I was just talking to Derek Johnson from Kansas-Missouri rivalry just before this, and I brought up the fact that hey, he gets a chance. Kansas gets a chance to show the Big 12 what they can do against an SEC opponent. You get a chance to do that against a Big 10 opponent. How big is that for the conference for Rocco Beck and Iowa State to prove that this conference belongs after kind of having an off week last week?
This is huge for Iowa State, and I was just chatting with Jake Crane over on Locked On Cyclones about the kind of the importance of this game, because there's an element of this is non-conference. Like, how important really is this? Well, this is huge, because if Iowa State has the same record as a Big Ten team, Crane pointed out, like, if you lose to that Big Ten team, committee's probably not going to go your way. So it's obviously important for the entire conference, and showing that the Big 12 does have a competitive nature to it across, the ACC, Big 10, Big 12, whatever, like across the entire Power Four. But also just for Iowa State, like, this is actually kind of important come the end of the season. How did you fare against a non-Big 12 opponent where it's kind of murky because it is such a tight conference?
Yeah, you played South Dakota last week, won 55-7. It was a very impressive win. Rocco Beck really showed out, broke a school record in completions, beat Seneca Wallace's name. Always love when Seneca Wallace's name pops up. Had a good time watching him in the league as well. And then next week you play Arkansas State. So this is the true test for the non-conference schedule for you for Iowa State. So if you get this win and you have a good conference Big 12 play, then not only are you potentially on your way to Arlington, but you could be seen as an at-large bid for the college football playoffs. Talk to me about Rocco Beck, because we're starting to see, I've been on social media. This is going to be a big game. We see it from Big Noon Saturday, Gus on the call, Gus and Joel, always a good one. But one thing I continue to see, Nick, is the comparisons between Rocco Beck and Brock Purdy, obviously the San Francisco 49ers quarterback, the one who's with Iowa State for quite some time. What is your comparison between the two, and what does Rocco Beck need to be seen as maybe a quarterback better than Brock in a Cyclones uniform?
I talked about this earlier this week, and I actually got some pretty good feedback from our listeners. I think a lot of people can kind of come to the same consensus that these two are sort of the top two for Iowa State. If you were to build a Mount Rushmore that had two heads, it'd probably be Purdy and Rocco. The way I look at it is that Rocco is kind of following in the footsteps of Purdy. Purdy came on and, in a way, blazed this trail, built this path for Iowa State to kind of excel when he left. The program was better when he left than when he came into it. You know how they always say, like, leave the place better or cleaner than when you got there or whatever. That's kind of what Brock did with Iowa State. And now Rocco is kind of reaping the benefits of that. And so I think beating Iowa this weekend is immediately going to help Rocco's case if he wants to, or if we want to look at it in a way of Rocco's better than Purdy. I do think that it's just two greats in some senses. But I also think that if you really want to get Rocco above Purdy, we need to see some postseason kind of glamour because of how highly Purdy is looked at in the Cyclone Nation. Like, he is kind of the poster child in a way, really brought Iowa State sort of out of the ashes. And so to beat that, you really are going to have to really stretch, I think, and maybe make another Big 12 championship, maybe make the postseason, whatever it is. Rocco's more clutch. I think we can all agree on that. But resume-wise, it's going to come down, I think, the postseason when comparing those two.
When I look at Winsipedia and I go back and look at the history between Iowa State and Iowa State only has 2 wins since 2014 in this rivalry. They won last year 20-19. They won in 2022 10-7. I mean, these are really close games over the last couple seasons. I mean, with the exception of a 42-3 victory in 2016, all of these games have been very close one-score games. Where do you see this game going right now? Of course, Iowa State being a 3.5-point favorite.
Yeah, I think that 42-3 is Matt Campbell's first year, if I'm not mistaken. If I believe so. And as far as this season, I do think it will be different than basically the rest of Matt Campbell's tenure, except for that first game. I personally right now, and I know I'm on like the super minority on this one. I've talked to quite a few people about this game. Nobody agrees with me because this game is always so close. It is always such a, come down to the last possession type of game. I think Iowa State puts up a lot of points in this one. And the question becomes, does Iowa hang or not? There is a statistic out there that when Iowa scores 21 or more points, they just have some ridiculous win percentage. It's like 300 to 3 losses, or I don't know what the number is because I don't pay attention to Iowa stats, but it's wildly successful. Can they get over that 21 mark? I don't know. I don't know if Iowa's capable of that against Iowa State's defense. Is Mark Gronowski going to throw for more than 44 yards? I think there's a world where Iowa State scores more points than Mark Gronowski has passing yards in this one. Iowa State's offense is really good. I've heard about how good Iowa's defense is, but I'm going to need to see it on the field. The first 2 weeks, I've been thoroughly impressed with the offense. And my prediction then is essentially this is going to be either a barn burner in the 40s, 47-40 type of ending, or it's going to be an Iowa State runaway looking like South Dakota.
Yeah, going to be really interesting. From the Kansas State perspective, we've had this talk in the past how Matt Campbell kind of owns Chris Klieman. The fact that Matt Campbell only has a couple wins against Iowa in his tenure, I know that's kind of a narrative right now. How big would it be, Iowa State getting this win this year after getting a Big 12 championship or heading to the Big 12 championship last year, getting a win in the Pop-Tart Bowl, and then obviously beating Kansas State in Dublin, and then getting that win in Iowa, beating both your rivals in this year? That's got to be a huge, good feeling if they can do that on Saturday.
Yeah, especially to start the season, right? Generally, we have to wait until, second to last week or whatever it is, maybe the last week, like last season, to play Kansas State. And so you start this season off just as hot as you kind of ended last season. If you just erase essentially Arlington, like, can we just forget about that? Let's move on from ASU. If we just take that out of the equation,
forget about Dublin, then I think we can be on the same page.
Okay, I see how it is. Yeah, no, I think this game is a really good indicator to me of just how up and to the right is Iowa State, because I am firmly in the camp that Iowa State football is trending upwards. Like, we look really good compared to 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even 4 years ago. I think we're only looking up. But this game is oddly, which, not in the Big 12, a game that it's like, where are we at? What's actually kind of happening? Now, it's not the only thing we're going to judge on, but if we can come away with this one, I think that shows something.
Is this going to prove that Iowa is truly a Cyclone state, Nick?
Oh, we are. Well, we hit subscribe down below every single day to prove it's Cyclone State. But yeah, there's a lot on the line. I can't tell you, man. It's like Christmas. It comes but once a year, and it's like Christmas Eve today. And a lot rides on this game. 365 days of bragging rights. A lot of divided homes. Iowa State. You're gonna hear about it, and everyone is bought in. That's what makes this rivalry so great.
Well, Kansas State everydayers that listen to this show, you have a perfect Saturday lined up, in my opinion. You can start off with Big Noon Saturday and take on Iowa State. Then you can check out Kansas, Mizzou. And then for a nightcap, you get to see, hopefully, Kansas State with a statement win over the Army Black Knights. Nick, got a prediction score for Cyhawk? What you going with?
I know. I'm going to settle in on, let's go 35-20. I know. Big, bold. But if you don't go big, you go home.
Well, I love to hear it. Sounds good. All right, give us your score predictions in the comments below. I want to hear from all of them. What's your score prediction for Kansas State Army, for Cyhawk, and for the Border War? Leave that all in the comment description below, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. Right after the game, we will be live, even though it'll be late. You can check us out on Locked On Kansas State. Please like the video. Please subscribe. And this has been Locked On Kansas State.